Good day. Welcome to Putnam Talk Radio. Putnam Talk Radio, produced by Sharc Creative. I'm John Marino, and this is the Cup of Joe Political Show. And we are made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built. By Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk in Westchester. They work throughout the Hudson Valley, as does Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. And also to Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, Mount Kisco, and White Plains. They work up and down the Hudson Valley as well. We are joined by 94th District Assemblyman Kevin Byrne. The 94th AD covers northern Westchester, basically the town of Yorktown, and works into a good portion of Putnam County, basically everything east of the town of Phillipstown. Kevin Byrne, welcome back to Putnam Talk Radio. Great to have you back with us here on Sharc Creative. I remember the last time I think we had you on Westchester Talk Radio on that affiliate. And you are also, too, the Republican and conservative candidate for county executive in Putnam County to take the reins from Mary Ellen Odell when she steps down at the end of this year. I guess she is term limited out of the office. You have no Democratic opposition, as it turns out. We'll get to that. But first, up in Albany, the work you're doing up there, if you had the opportunity to call everybody back in the Assembly and the Senate to go to Albany like they did when it came time to reinforce our gun laws, what issue would you pick to do that?
Well, that's a great question. There are so many different issues that are pressing that I could talk about, tax reform, spending issues, but I think the most immediately pressing issue, if we were able to call back and I could pick one thing to put on the legislature's agenda, it would be for a full repeal of the state's bail reform laws to bring back bail and judicial discretion. That doesn't mean that you slap bail on every single offense. Obviously, there were issues in the past that needed to be addressed, but if you give the judges the discretion to make that determination, where they can look at if someone's a threat or a flight risk, or if there's a dangerousness element that needs to be considered, all of that should be on the books right now, so judges have the tools and are empowered to do more to protect our streets and our people. That would be the number one thing I think they would need to do, because it would have an immediate effect, not just for folks that live in the area that I represent, but the people of New York City, of which many of my constituents, that's where they work. You know, there are people that wear a badge that serve the NYPD, they serve in the FDNY, they work sanitation, they work on Wall Street. A lot of folks commute down to the city. So the safety of the residents of New York City and their visitors, it's important to me as well, even though I don't represent New York City. They have been very negatively impacted by bail reform. So that would be what I would do right away.
Kathy Hochul, the governor, says that the tweak she made recently, we need to give them time to see if they work. And maybe when the session gets back up in Albany, everybody comes for the new session in Albany in January. They can talk about it then. But why doesn't she do more to do this and to make this happen now? I think she, as governor, has at least some ability to twist a few arms.
She absolutely does. She has tremendous power. We have one of the most powerful executive branches of government in state government. New York's executive, whether it was Andrew Cuomo, Eliot Spitzer, or Kathy Hochul, has a tremendous amount of power, including in our budget process. And she failed New Yorkers when she refused to put in a real clawback or repeal of bail reform in the state's budget process. Normally, I don't think any of those types of changes belong in our budget, but it's important for people to know that that's how it happened in the first place. It was rammed in an omnibus budget bill. So it's only fitting that if that's the way we got to get rid of it or claw it back is within our budget. She had the means and the power to do that, and she failed to do that. At one point, she leaked out like a 10-point proposal a year ago to claw some things back, and then kind of pretended that she didn't do it. And the changes that she made were largely cosmetic. There's still a lot of major problems with bail reform. All you have to do is open the paper and read about the various stories of people being caught and released. People who are criminals feel emboldened against law enforcement. It makes their jobs more dangerous. Talk to the small business owners on Main Street. Why some of them feel like they need to be armed to make sure that they feel safer. And now, because of some of those new gun laws that were passed, they need to put in a sign in their storefront I think that whole restriction is unconstitutional, but they got to put a sign and say that, hey, we respect your Second Amendment right to have a concealed carry. It also completely that little. I know I'm going a little on a tangent here, but that sign defeats the whole purpose of a concealed carry. It's supposed to be concealed. So why do you have a sign advertising to everybody that we respect concealed carry? You're basically letting everyone know that guns are allowed in the stores. So it defeats the whole entire premise of what a concealed carry is and why you have it.
Why does she seem to be so afraid to do this? She wants to get elected governor. Mm-hmm. She's the accidental governor, as it turned out, in the whole situation with Andrew Cuomo a year ago. So she does want to get elected. So, I mean, she can have that on her resume forever if she gets elected to the governorship. I think she'd pick up a lot more votes in the tri-state, in this metropolitan area and around all of New York State if she actually called everybody back to Albany and said, let's get serious about reform of bail laws now. Yeah, I think she has learned, even though I think there was a distance between her and Andrew Cuomo. I think most people acknowledge that while she was his lieutenant governor, he didn't really empower her a lot. But she certainly learned a lot from him. And she knows she needs to appease the progressives to get elected in this state. And I think she was unwilling to do that because she had to appease the progressives in the legislature, the Working Families Party, all those folks that just seem to ignore what's staring at them in the face, that bail reform has been an unmitigated disaster. That it was never really about the sad story of someone being incarcerated because of a stolen backpack. They passed sweeping reforms that completely, eliminated bail except for the most extreme circumstances, and it's had a really negative impact. And there's other changes that did it. There's consequences to raise the age that passed several years prior that we're seeing now that have made it more difficult, to hold criminals who are younger accountable, but also. It's encouraged gang recruitment from younger people. There's been changes, there's been this misnomer that when we have solitary confinement in New York State, you talk to some of my colleagues in the legislature, they think it's Orange is the New Black on Netflix. We don't have that. It doesn't exist. So we banned something that didn't exist. What they did was they put in prohibitions that were far more expansive, that makes it more difficult for folks that work in corrections to segregate people when they're being dangerous, not just for COs, but also for their other inmates. So all those things were rushed through and were done to, I think, appease a faction within the Democratic Party, the more progressive faction, more liberal faction. And I think she's intimidated by that, and she lacks the political will and the strength to do what's needed. What would Lee Zeldin, the Republican candidate for governor, offer instead of Kathy Hochul? I'd be very excited if he became governor as someone in Putnam County. I think he would respect local governments more, which is certainly important. I think he would provide the tax relief that New Yorkers need to end the out-migration crisis. We've lost another congressional representative. After 10 years prior, we lost 2 congressional representatives. It's because more people are leaving New York than are coming in. I think he absolutely would address bail reform, like immediately. Would address the need to repeal bail reform. I think he would call rogue DAs accountable that failed to enforce the law, like Alvin Bragg. If you're telling the people that elected you, and you're the elected prosecutor for your region, you're going to say, no, I'm not going to enforce the law. That's a major, major problem. And you need to have a strong governor, executive who's going to make sure that people follow the law, that they follow the Constitution. I think Lee Zeldin would absolutely do that. And he certainly would stand up for our military heroes, our veterans, and all of our active first responders. And I think we need more of that. Recently, you spent some time in Nassau County with the county executive, Bruce Blakeman, who was elected last November, a year ago. What did you work on together with Bruce? Yeah, no, I had a great conversation with County Executive Nassau, Bruce Blakeman. He's new into his office. He was part of a big wave in Nassau County where the Republican Party took back control of the county executive's office. And we talked about, some of it was political, about balancing things with our colleagues in both our own party, but also with the other party. The early work that gets done in a transition, and that's really where I was relying on him for some counsel and advice. When there's resistance for people to collaborate
His transition was more hostile because of an opposing party, but I don't think anyone really sought to undermine him, but maybe just didn't share things proactively. And what to look out for as far as budget concerns, if there's unfunded liabilities that the outgoing administration could create budget hardships for the next administration. We talked about all those different things, and the need to stay true to your principles. When you're working, and I learned this in Albany too. When you work with the opposing party and people that think differently, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to work with them, but don't compromise on your core principles. Make sure that you stick to your true principles. If you want to fancy yourself a fiscal conservative or someone that values limited government, don't pander to someone and all of a sudden do a 180 on your core values and beliefs. Stay true to your principles, but that doesn't prevent you from working across the aisle, working with people in good faith. And he encouraged me to continue to be true to who you are and to your beliefs.
Now that comes in handy for you as we head towards this November and the election for Putnam County Executive to replace the outgoing term-limited Mary Ellen Odell. You are the candidate for the Republican and Conservative parties too. You have no opposition. How do you run an election campaign like this?
Well, it's the first time I've ever had to go through this. I've always had opposition. I've had hotly contested primaries, hotly contested conventions, general elections. This is a first. I am not complaining. I'm very happy, obviously. And I'm making, the best, taking all the advantages that I have with the time that I've been given. There's some people when they run opposed, they just kind of like say, "Oh, I want to fade into the background and just, be quiet, not upset anybody." That's really not my style. I'm not in people's faces, but I'm still out there meeting with voters. I've done it every year. We do this Trailblazing with Byrne Forum. I want to continue some model of it in county government where I do a constituent forum in every town I represent in the assembly. There's no planned agenda, so I take whatever questions come at me. I spend about 10, 15 minutes to give them a little bit of an update about what we've been doing in government. And then we go on a healthy walk outdoors on either one of our trails or our parks. And I've always found that to be a productive conversation. We get to highlight some of our great natural beauties in the area. And the people that show up for a walk are, in my experience, different than the folks that might show up to a town hall meeting. Like, they want to show up. There's a positive attitude that's connected, and they're not there just to complain. Some of them do, but it's they know that it's not just about them, it's about everybody. So we try to make sure no one monopolizes time. So I've done all those things. I've knocked on doors, I've made phone calls, and I've, rather than go right into transition, because we haven't had an election yet, I don't want to be overly presumptuous. I could technically lose to Mickey Mouse in a write-in campaign. But I've taken this time to meet with as many county government experts as I can. I've worked with county government as someone that's volunteered in emergency services, that's worked in emergency services, someone that's worked in state government, worked for Congress. I was on the planning board. I've interfaced with county government for many, many years, but I haven't worked in county government as a county legislator or as a county executive. So I've met with Bruce Blakeman, Nassau County Executive. I've met with Steve McLaughlin, the Rensselaer County Executive, also a former Assembly colleague. I met with Steve Newhouse, our colleague in Orange County, the county executive over there. Mark Molinaro, Dutchess County Executive, also the president of the New York State County Executives Association. I've had Zoom calls with Oneida County Executive, Saratoga County Administrator, to get a nice feel for all the different models in county government, from large, like Nassau County, 1.4 million people, a multi-billion-dollar budget, to an Orange County, which is 400,000 people, a much larger budget than Putnam. But you get a nice mix. Saratoga has a board of supervisors and a county administrator. They don't have a county executive. Rensselaer County is a little bit more similar to Putnam County, but still larger. They have Troy. We don't have a city in Putnam County. So I want to make sure that I have all the knowledge, all the resources that I need. And to the extent we get cooperation from the incumbent, I'll take it. And the extent that we don't, I'm going to make sure that I am prepared to hit the ground running and be as successful as possible, so we can implement our vision to make sure that Putnam County's brightest days are ahead of us.
Kevin Byrne, 94th District Assembly Representative in Albany, represents Northern Westchester and a good swath of Putnam County. He's running for county executive here in Putnam, Republican and conservative lines in November. When you presumably take office in January, what will you look to do? You talk about making a smooth transition. How will that be possible? What will you look to do on day one?
Well, first thing we got to do is obviously I made this clear publicly. I haven't announced my transition team, and I'm not now because I think it's just too early for that. But hopefully we get through that soon. Anyone who's in the county government in a senior management position now, I would hope would sit down with our transition team, and they'll be invited, whether they like to be considered to stay on, or they just want to do like an exit interview, and because I do believe people that work in county government, there's many really, really good people, and they all care about the success of our county. They want our county to thrive. So they'll have a lot of inside knowledge and perspective that I think is valuable for our transition team to meet. But the first thing is you got to surround yourself with your senior management. There are some positions in county government that are at the pleasure of the county executive, other positions that are term positions. Certainly, we want to build a good working relationship with the county legislature. There's going to be a new chairman or chairperson of the county legislature. We won't see who that is yet. But the person who's the chair of the legislature right now, while technically on the ballot, has said under oath that if elected, he will not serve. So he's exiting at the end of this term. So we'll have a new chair of the legislature that we want to build a healthy relationship with. And some of the things I run on that I want to do and see for Putnam County, I like to pass a taxpayer bill of rights. I want to declare Putnam County a constitutional county. No, that doesn't, all of a sudden get rid of all the federal and state laws. What it would do is pass a resolution and strengthen our county's mission statement and our county charter to make it clear that we value our United States Constitution. It's not just about one particular amendment, but it's about all of the Bill of Rights, our First Amendment. Many of the intrusions on our constitutional liberties and freedoms from the federal government, the state government, people just want to know that it's acknowledged, that we see it, and that we're doing something about it, because as elected representatives, we raise our right hand, we take the oath of office. And to me, that doesn't stop at the end of a swearing-in ceremony or an inauguration. It continues throughout the length of your service. I think we can do that. It would be a meaningful statement. Cattaraugus County in upstate New York did it, and I think Putnam County should do that too. I also want to open county government and kind of enter the 21st century, if you will. Almost every school district, town, and village live streams their board meetings. County government does not. They do audio and visual of their full-fledged meetings. They do audio only for their committee meetings. I think it should be audio and visual for all. They should be live streamed for all, especially the full-fledged meetings, and our budget hearings should be live streamed so you can have more participation. I think, while unintentionally, and this wasn't the intent of the legislature, I think the existing practice right now is discriminatory towards seniors and people who are hearing impaired. If you have an audio-only format, folks who are hearing impaired really can't participate in county government. And I want people to feel that they can participate in county government. For us to make those changes, I'll need buy-in from the legislature. And to increase transparency, I think you also need a county executive that's going to be out in the community, meet people where they are. I talked about earlier what I do in the state legislature with those constituent forums. There's no reason that our county executive can't do some semblance of the same thing, whether it's a town hall or a trailblazing event or a constituent forum. George Latimer does it. Mark Molinaro does it. Rob Astorino used to do it. The difference between town government and county government is we have a separation of powers, right? We have a legislature and executive, right, branch, whereas in town government and village government, the executive is a member of the board. So every board meeting is literally a town hall meeting where people can come in and talk. County government doesn't have that, right? You have the chair of the legislature and you have the executive. And in the past, in the precedents, once in a while there'll be a hearing on an issue, but the executive isn't present. And there's really no opportunity for the residents to engage with the executive. I don't, and that's not a slight on Mary Ellen Odell. Bob Boddy didn't do that either. Neither did Peter Alexanderson, and neither did David Bruin. But I believe the only time if you want to engage with your county executive, you should be able to do that, and you should not have to wait till the state of the county or the budget presentation to do that. Those two presentations, by the way, largely ceremonial, and the executive does not take questions at the end of it. So I would think it's important to have a separate forum. I'm not going to pledge I'm doing one in every single town. That might be a little bit excessive, but I don't think it's unfair to say we're going to do at least 2 a year, one for each side of the county, so I can directly get feedback from our residents, our officials, and if they want to grill me and beat me up, so be it, because that happens, and I can take it in state government. I got to talk about everything from gun laws, abortion, taxes, you name it. Every controversial issue that we got to talk about, I got to talk about in state government. In county government, it should be more local in nature. It should be more about your public health, your public safety, your taxes, our social welfare programs, our child advocacy center, our youth bureau, all these great things that county government does. I like to talk about that. If there's a problem, whether it's our roads or bridges, I want to hear from the people so we can address them and that we can learn.
I can imagine how much this means to you. You are a Putnam County native. What high school did you go to?
So I grew up in Putnam Valley, but in the Carmel School District, which is a sliver of Putnam Valley near Kent. Went to Carmel schools, graduated Carmel High School, and then ultimately got my undergraduate degree from the University of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and my master's degree from Marist College up in Poughkeepsie.
And now I see you have Carmel blue on for the Carmel Rams, obviously. And the Deputy County Executive, Tom Fury, of course, is a product of Carmel. His brother, also too, legendary athlete way back when, Kevin Fury, 30 years ago, had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Now, you will transition with Mary Ellen Odell's team, the current county executive, who, as we've pointed out, her term will come to an end at the end of this year. How will you continue upon knowing that you're a Republican, she's a Republican? How will you continue what she is doing and has done, and then work that into what Kevin Byrne does and is about?
Sure. Well, I've been active at a lot of their various county meetings in the past years, particularly as it pertains to the executive. And those are formal meetings, again, while they're ceremonious, their budget presentations, the state of the county. Mary Ellen did not support me, and that's fine. But I have been very careful to acknowledge some of the really good things that she has done. I think we do have different strategies that I would put forward to control county government spending, which would be different. But she's done a lot of very good things, I think, in particular of note for our veterans. She's done a very good job raising awareness for some of the veteran services that county government provides. We have a residence for veterans. Those who have various issues and homelessness is mitigated from having that veterans residence in Putnam County. We have a tremendous group that managed the Joseph P. Dwyer peer-to-peer program. That's a state-funded program, but county implemented. And she implemented the Row of Honor on Lake Lenita, which was that beautiful display of American flags. I think there could be maybe perhaps more structure to that, but I think on premise, I think it's a beautiful program that many people enjoy, and that's a testament to her vision to implement that. She inherited two county properties that Bob Bondi had acquired. I think she was in the legislature when this was done. I'm not certain of that. The county golf course and Tilly Foster Farm. I think she could have done one of two things: ignore them, let them rot so people don't use them and save money, or she could say, you know what, we're going to make this into something that people enjoy and people can utilize as a public asset. And I think she did the latter, which I think is a good thing. I think people do enjoy both the golf course and Tilly Foster Farm. I have perhaps a little bit of a different vision where it would be less commercial, more of, particularly Tilly Foster, more as a park. It's a park. That said, I think people do enjoy Tilly's Table, and I'm not looking to upend any of the work that's been done. And I think, for her, I think many people would say that's part of her legacy, that those things were things that she tried to elevate. I'm not sure what her vision was ultimately for those facilities because she's never shared that with me. But I can tell you, someone that works in state government, And as someone that grew up in Putnam County, I grew up going across the river to Bear Mountain. And it's a beautiful state park. And the Bear Mountain Inn, while it was closed for a number of years, is open. And I've always loved that space. So if that was part of her vision, was to have like Tilly Foster or something like that, I think that's an attraction that a lot of people can enjoy and get behind. But one of the things that I would like to do that I think would be a difference is really drill down and highlight the core functions of county government. I don't want people to think of Putnam County government and the first thing they think of is the golf course or the farm. While they're treasured assets and they've done a lot of good work on them, I want people to realize that county government's primary function is to implement so many of these state programs. So it's, some of them are mandated services or fixed costs. Our county jail being one of them, our sheriff's patrol, right? Another one, our Bureau of Emergency Services, our dispatch workers, our highway and facilities department, our engineering division, our parks division, social services, mental health, child advocacy center, the youth bureau. All these things are very, very important. And I want to make sure that the everyday taxpayers of Putnam County, when they think of county government, they think of those things because those are the things that are going to affect them and their families. And hopefully they'll understand that that's where their tax dollars are going. That's something I really want to make happen.
What kind of a buy-in do you need from the county board, knowing that there are Democrats, there are Republicans, some friction in the past, I guess, there has been between both sides and the things you hear around the county. How do you propose to bring everybody together?
Well, it's divided, but not in a sense that you may be more familiar with in other counties. It's a relatively small county legislature. It's a 9-board legislature, and it's 8-1, 8 Republicans, only 1 Democrat. So we could take the attitude of, nope, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to steamroll, and I'm just going to do whatever Kevin Byrne wants and expect every Republican to stay in line and do what we want. I don't operate that way. I actually, as a legislator, I view them as a separate branch of government, and I am going to expect them to generate some of their own ideas to help bolster county government and for us to work together in good faith. Hopefully they like the ideas that I put forward and we can get those things together, get done together, because I think it's to everyone's benefit. I do think the divide that does exist somewhat is geographic. The 1 Democrat is from the west side of the county, and the 8 Republicans are more from the center, close towards the eastern side of the county. So one thing that we could certainly do is extend an olive branch to the west side of the county to show that we're going to work in good faith with them. Try to highlight some of those core functions of government, those county services that are provided, make sure they're aware about those services. So hopefully they appreciate them a bit more. But I can tell you, as someone that's worked in state government as a legislator, I'm used to being in the minority, right? So I'm outnumbered 2-1 in the state assembly. And yet somehow I was able to pass over 20 bills that were signed into law. I've been able to bring back probably $500,000 directly to fund various government services and programs in the county. And I've been effective as a state assemblyman. So I still have an appreciation for the minority, even if they're from a different party. So I want to work with them in good faith. If they have good ideas that are going to help everybody, we'll listen to them and we'll try to partner. But I fully understand and expect there will be disagreements. And so long as those disagreements are surrounded on policy differences and not personality differences, I think you can work through that and it can be constructive. Once it gets personal and it's vindictive, it can really sour things quickly. And so in my experience, I've always done my best to separate that out and just really focus on the policy. So we can really, drive this bus towards how can we help people that live in Putnam County and make county government work better.
Does it matter that you have such a majority on the county board, or in the end, it doesn't matter that you just produce?
I think it certainly helps being a Republican. Obviously, a stronger Republican presence on the county board are legislators that are likely going to be much more in line with my philosophy of government, limited government, lower taxes, enhancing efficiencies, valuing individual liberties, property rights, things of that nature, pro-growth policies that will welcome development, that don't hinder our, again, our personal properties, but that can bring in more sales tax revenue and other sorts of jobs, obviously. I think those are ideas that, easily find a home within the Republican Party. So legislators that are Republican, obviously, I think that's going to be easier for me to work with. But I like a challenge. So I actually enjoy working with people that think differently. And if they have a different perspective or view, you're going to realize that sometimes there's going to be an impasse. And okay, we're going to disagree on this. Guess what? I have the votes, so we're going to move forward. However, I'm always willing to learn more. And there's tons of other issues out there that people don't talk about where we always have common ground. And there's perhaps opportunities that can, help preserve open space, that you'll find there'll be great bridges that can be built with both the Democrat presence and the Republican presence in Putnam County. Things about protection of our drinking water can help Putnam County. Our health department, obviously, we just went through this crazy pandemic that was intrusive into all of our lives. And the county health department was there implementing a lot of these vaccine clinics and everything else. Well, you know what? They don't check your party registration when you come to get that shot or when you come to get tested. It is not partisan. That's an easy bridge that should be built. And when you're doing it, extend the olive branch and say, hey, Democrat supervisor, Democrat, legislator, don't even say Democrat, just invite them, just include them. And if you do that, I think people largely see that, and then they know that you're trying to build bridges. And I think that helps. So that's always been how I try to tackle it. Stick to the policy and not the personality.
Kevin Byrne, 94th District Assembly member from Northern Westchester and most of Putnam County, except for right at the border there, the town of Phillipstown. We thank you for joining us here. You're also the Republican and conservative candidate for county executive on Election Day. Best of luck on Election Day.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
And we'll talk in the new year, I'm sure.
You got it.
All right. Great to talk to you again. Kevin Byrne here on Putnam Talk Radio. Produced by Sharc Creative, the Cup of Joe political show. I'm John Marino, and we are made possible by Robuston Oil, the house that service built. By Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk in Westchester. They work throughout the Hudson Valley, as does Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, and Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, Mount Kisco, and throughout the Hudson Valley, too. Catch all of our Putnam Orange, also Rockland, Westchester, Dutchess, and Fairfield County programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube, and now we are on Apple Podcasts, too.